Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is Michael Kupfer with Harvard Business Services, and I am joined by Brett Melson, our Director of U.S. Sales. I want to welcome you all to our webinar today. I want to start just by asking everyone on the line if they could just use the chat and let us know where you're located in the world. We work with people here in the state of Delaware, all around the U.S. and all over the world. So we'd love to know who's on the line today and listening and where you're located. So when you have a chance, just go ahead and chat that into us. And meanwhile, I have a couple quick announcements that I'm going to get to before we jump into the conversation. So first of all, this webinar is being recorded. You'll all receive a copy of the recording via email probably on Friday this week. And so that way you can go back and visit anything that we talk about and see if there's anything you missed. And of course, you're always welcome to follow up with us afterwards as well. We're also going to be taking some time to answer your questions during this webinar. So if you have any thoughts as you're hearing what Brett has to say about different entity types, please feel free to chat in those questions and let us know. And we'll get to as many of those questions as we possibly can. Also, there are a couple handouts available in the handout section of your webinar control panel there. One is just the slides from today's webinar, and the other is a quick checklist for those of you who are interested in starting your own company. So that's just a quick reference for you. And just looking at our chat, we see that there's some people checking in where they're from. Mostly from the U.S. I see Delaware, I see Florida, and some other locations. So thank you for letting us know. And I think we just need to touch on today's agenda. And we have somebody from South Africa on the line as well too. So welcome everybody. So today's agenda, we're going to first talk about Harvard Business Services and what we do here. We're going to let you know what a Delaware registered agent is. We're going to talk about different business entity types, such as sole proprietorships, limited liability companies, corporations. We'll talk about the S Corp designation, how to form a company, the cost of incorporating, and of course, we'll take your questions at the end of this session. And I should point out that we are a Delaware formation specialist. So a lot of the information we're going to give you today is specific to forming a company in the state of Delaware. You are, of course, able to form companies in other states, but this being our area of expertise, this is kind of where we're going to focus today. But feel free to ask any questions that are unclear about that. And just a little bit about us. We were founded in 1981 in Wilmington, Delaware. That was about 37 years ago. We're still located in Delaware. We're now in the city of Lewis, which is right along the coast. We've helped 150,000 people all over the world form Delaware companies. We have 75,000 current clients. And our specialty really is educating the people that come to us for assistance. We have an online live chat feature. We help people by phone every day and by email. We really help walk you through the process of forming the company and serve as your registered agent. So we really love to help everybody who's looking to start a Delaware company. I do want to point out that we're not attorneys or accountants. So anything on this webinar today, please don't take it as legal advice or accounting advice. If you have questions, we encourage you to check in with your lawyer or your accountant as needed. I mentioned a moment ago that we have a live chat feature on our website. This diagram shows you where you can find that. So anytime during business hours, you can check in right there and get in touch with one of our people right here in our office. In fact, it may be Brett a lot of the time that you speak to. So we're more than happy to help you with any questions you have. If you get to us not during business hours, you'll be able to leave a message there and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And I think our service really is what sets us apart from our competitors. Trustpilot is a third-party customer reviews platform, and you can see we have over 2,200 reviews on there. We have 93% five-star ratings, and we're number 11 out of over 1,100 companies in the for companies category, which is kind of like their B2B type category. We're also the #1 business formations company on Trustpilot. And in addition, on Better Business Bureau, we have an A+ rating. We have an average 5-star rating. And if you happen to be on that site and want to take a look at some of our competitors that you might be familiar with, I think you'll see that there really is a difference in the service that we can offer you to make that experience better. So I think that's enough bragging, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over now to Brett, and he's going to talk everything that we discussed in the agenda.
Hello, and good day, everyone. My name is Brett Melson. I've had the pleasure of working with Harvard Business Services for the last 19 years. I've helped countless number of clients from all over the world form and file their corporation. So I'd be glad to help all of you with any questions. We're going to start off today with what is a Delaware registered agent. The Delaware registered agent, it's a vital function. It's a requirement. The state of Delaware requires that a corporation or an entity maintains a registered agent at all times. Our job as the registered agent is going to be to accept any service of process or lawsuit served on the company and forward them along immediately. So we're like a liaison in between your company and the state of Delaware. So a service process, they come in sometimes for companies that we serve as the agent on. Think of that as like a lawsuit. A service of process will come in, we're the registered agent, we'll accept it. We're then going to immediately upload this service of process to your online My Control Desk, which is our online portal that allows you to manage your entities. And then we're also going to send you out an email letting you know that a service of process has been received. Hopefully, your company won't receive any service of process, but if it does, we'll make sure you're alerted to that in a timely fashion. We're also going to notify you of the annual franchise tax, which is the tax paid to the state of Delaware for the right or privilege to have a company here. Our job is going to be to inform you of that, or if there's any other notices from the state of Delaware, we'll inform you of those as well. Our annual agent fee is just $50. It's been fixed at $50 since our inception in 1981. It's guaranteed never to increase. And we even offer multi-year discounts, 2 years of service for $90, or for maximum savings, 3 years of service for $125. So that covers the registered agent. We're going to start off with the sole proprietorship. We've all heard of the sole proprietorship. It's more or less just waking up one morning, going outside, hanging a sign up saying, I'm in business. That being said, it's very, very easy to start off as a sole proprietorship. There's really no state filing required to create the entity. Now, the states do have business license requirement. For instance, if you're here in the state of Delaware, clients will go to the Division of Revenue, which is the governing body here that governs businesses and taxes corporations. It's going to go ahead and obtain the business license from the Division of Revenue. You'll walk in there with a check for $75, and a couple minutes later, you're walking out the door with a business license. It's just that easy. You'll have full control and responsibility of management and operations. Since there's only one person involved, there's no one to argue with. So it's very easy to go ahead and maintain. However, in this day and age, there are significant disadvantages of the sole proprietorship. There's unlimited personal liability, meaning you're liable for the debts of the company. It's also not a separate entity. If the company gets sued, you get sued. You're one and the same. In my experience, in this day and age, many people do tend to steer very clear and avoid the sole proprietor structure, since it just really doesn't provide asset protection at all whatsoever. And in this society, clients want to make sure that they do have that ever so important asset protection by going ahead and forming a corporation, an LLC, a series LLC, or some type of corporate entity. So we've covered the sole proprietorship. We're going to move along to what is the limited liability company. The limited liability company is a type of entity that provides the owners with very strong asset protection. and allows for what we call pass-through taxation benefits, meaning the profits and losses pass through the entity right on through to the individual members or owners of the LLC. This LLC is governed by a private contract called an operating agreement. The operating agreement is written by the members or owners of the company, and we're going to get into some of the advantages here of the LLC. First off, over 70% of all new companies filed are the LLC. And one of the reasons for that is it's very easy to operate and maintain an LLC. With a corporation, we have formalities. We have minutes. We have meetings. We have bylaws. We've got stock to issue. There's meeting minutes. There's a board of directors. There's officers. There's shareholders. There's a stock transfer ledger. There's resolutions. So there's a lot of formalities that are involved that are done within the company itself. However, with the LLC, it eliminates the formalities of the minutes, the meetings, all that good stuff that we just talked about. So I like to say it's extremely easy to operate and maintain. So for a lot of clients that aren't looking to sell shares of stock to bring aboard investors, they often tend to flock towards the LLC just so they can focus on the business, not corporate formalities. So with the LLC, members or owners, as we call them, well, pardon me, they're called members. The member is an owner. They're not personally liable for the debts of the LLC and cannot be forced to pay personally for lawsuits or judgments against the company traditionally. So it just really helps to put up that big, strong brick wall in between one's personal life and business life. So therefore, it makes it extremely tough to pierce that veil to go after the individuals behind the company. The LLC is also extremely flexible when it comes to the taxation. The LLC can be taxed like that of a sole proprietorship, but with asset protection. It can be taxed like that of a partnership. It can be taxed like that of a corporation, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. So with the LLC, the profits and the losses are traditionally passed right on through to the members to help avoid double taxation that a lot of times companies may experience with a corporation. Another advantage of the LLC is this operating agreement. And the operating agreement is unique to each LLC. It's going to spell out the economic relationship among the owners. So it's going to spell out the percentage of business owned. It's going to spell out the roles of each of the members. It's going to also help to spell out internally within the LLC different what-if type scenarios. What if a member no longer wants to be part of the company? What happens to their percentage of the business? What happens if somebody passes away in the company? What happens to their percentage of the business? Issues such as that are spelled out and defined within this LLC agreement. So therefore, if something does arise, if there is a problem, an issue down the road, it's already been addressed. So therefore, there's no surprises. All the members know exactly what is going to take place should a particular situation arise. The LLC agreement is private among the members. It's not provided to the state. It's not part of the public record. We don't need to see it. We don't care to see it. It's going to be your LLC's agreement. Some of our clients, a good portion of our clients are non-U.S. 17% of our business comes from clients from all over the world wanting to flock to Delaware to take advantage of the strongest corporate laws to file a company here, but operate anywhere in the world that they choose. This LLC agreement can be written in any language, so clients are free to write it in the language that's most convenient for them. Also, changes are going to happen in a business. It's bound to happen. The LLC agreement, since it's not filed with the state, since it's not part of the public record, can be changed or altered at any time. So for instance, if a member is no longer a part of the company, internally, the LLC agreement can be amended to go ahead and reflect the new ownership details without having to file a costly amendment with a state to update the member information. Delaware doesn't want to know the member information. They don't need to know the member information. So therefore, it's just held on file within the LLC itself. So that right there summarizes what I think are some of the most beneficial aspects of the LLC. It's the ease of use, it's the flexibility when it comes to the taxation, and with it being over 70% of the new formations, you definitely have the strength in numbers there. So we talked about all the great benefits of the LLC. We do have some annual fees for the LLC. And these are annual fees that are required to be paid, and they're required to keep an entity in good standing with the state. So we're first off going to start with the annual franchise tax. The franchise tax doesn't mean you're a Subway or McDonald's or anything like that. It's just the term the state uses. It's the tax paid to the state for the right or privilege of having a Delaware LLC. It's a flat $300 tax for any entity that's formed in 2018, for instance. The franchise tax will be due on June 1st of 2019, and then every June 1st there after that. It is a fee that's paid regardless of how much or how little business the LLC has done. This is the only tax that's traditionally paid to the state of Delaware if not actually physically operating here. It's very easy to pay the tax. We've got specialists here that can help. We'll make sure as the registered agent, we're going to send out many reminders to ensure it's paid on time. We have the ability to ping the state to see which of our clients have paid the tax and which of our clients have not. We're going to send many reminders that says, hey, don't forget, pay this tax, and we'll progressively send these reminders a little bit sooner as we get closer to the due date. But as soon as you pay the tax, the notices stop. So you can pay it through our service or it can be paid directly to the state. The second annual fee is that registered agent service that we discussed. And that's just the $50 or $90 for 2 years, or for the maximum savings, $125 for 3 years. That's guaranteed never to increase. That can be paid over the phone. You can stop and visit us in person, paid through our online portal, whatever's more convenient for you. So we make it as easy as possible to ensure the company stays compliant with the state of Delaware by paying these annual fees on time. So that covers the LLC, highlights some of its advantages, goes over the annual fees. We're going to move on to the corporation. The corporation is an independent legal entity separate from the people who control and manage it. In other words, corporation and tax laws view the corporation as a legal person that can enter into contracts, incur debts, pay taxes apart from its owners. The analogy I like to use is we're forming a brand new thing, and this brand new thing didn't exist until the second or minute that we file it. We're going ahead and filing almost like a birth certificate for the company. We're filing a certificate of incorporation that's creating this brand new company, and it didn't exist until the second or the minute that we filed that document. So this brand new corporation is going to be owned by its stockholders. It's going to be managed by its board of directors, who then in turn appoint the officers to run the day-to-day operations. So that's going to cover the corporation in a nutshell. Now, the corporation might sound a little daunting, but it has its advantages for sure. The corporation has 3 tiers of power that we discussed: the shareholders, directors, and officers. So the shareholders are the owners, and they elect the board of directors, who then in turn appoint the officers. And some of the commonly used terms that many clients are familiar with when it comes to officers might be a president, a secretary, a treasurer. Those are terms of an officer. But this 3-tier power system offers great checks and balances. So therefore, there's checks and balances in between. The shareholders are ensuring the directors and officers are all more or less doing what they should. The shareholders are not traditionally personally liable for debts of the company. The corporation, one of its main advantages is selling shares of stock. So shares of stock can be sold to raise capital in the company. So we often see many clients that are wanting to go public, have lofty ambitions of being the next Facebook or being the next Twitter, start with a high number of shares of stock. So therefore, they have plenty of stock to issue to potential investors. The corporation's taxed at an entity level, with the shareholders receiving dividends are taxed at the individual level. The board of directors, formal meetings, minutes, and annual reports are required. And it's more or less, think about it as keeping shareholders informed about the company with these minutes and annual reports. So the corporation does have annual fees. And they're a little bit different from that of the LLC. It does have a franchise tax. The franchise tax is based upon the amount of shares of stock the company authorizes. So when we file this birth certificate for the corporation, the certificate of incorporation, on that document, we're listing the number of authorized shares of stock that it has to issue. So a minimum stock company in Delaware has between 1 and 5,000 authorized shares of stock. It's going to pay a franchise tax and an annual report. It's a flat fee of $225, and that is due by March 1st of 2019 for any company formed in 2018. So that's often a very common startup figure for clients looking to form a corporation and keep the annual fees down. Whereas we can go ahead and file a corporation with a lot of shares of stock, for instance, 10,000 or more shares. The franchise tax and annual report fee is going to be a minimum of $450. But, it's not uncommon for us to see clients start with 10 million shares of stock, for instance, because they know they're going to need to be selling shares of stock to raise capital. So that little bit of franchise tax increase is just going to be a drop in the bucket once the business takes off and the investors start coming on board. The other annual fee that we have is that registered agent fee we discussed, that $50. So those right there are the annual fees associated with the corporation. So we're going to move on to what's known as Subchapter S, commonly called an S Corp. This is a nickname for the Subchapter S tax status. This is not a business entity type that we can form with the Division of Corporations. This is just a nickname. Corporations and LLCs can elect for the Subchapter S tax status with the IRS. To start, we're going to go over how corporations are traditionally taxed. Corporations are, by default, what we call a C status, C corporations when they are formed, unless they file a Form 2553 with the IRS for Subchapter S tax status. The C corporations are often your larger companies that have investors. This type of taxation can be beneficial for certain corporations. However, they typically face double taxation. The company pays taxes on its profits via Form 1120. The profits are then distributed to the shareholders, which are the owners, in the form of dividends. Those shareholders then must pay taxes on the dividends. With this Subchapter S tax status, the double taxation is eliminated, and it's perfect for start-up entities. So this Subchapter S tax status was enacted in 1958 to allow for the flow-through taxation. The LLC, the limited liability company, wasn't even brought into an existence as an entity type until the early 90s. So for years upon years, this taxation was just referred to, was able to be done by corporations, and its nickname was the S Corp, because the LLC wasn't even around. So when you hear the term S Corp, we'll have clients, hey, Brett, I want to go ahead and file an S Corp. So we'll have to explain to them, hey, this could be an LLC or it could be a corporation. So both the LLC and the corporation can have this Subchapter S tax status. And it just simply allows for this profits and the losses to pass through the entity right on through to the owners. So for the LLC and the corporations, there is a form to be filed, a Form 2553 of the IRS. It's filed with the IRS. The state doesn't need to know about this tax filing. The Division of Corporations doesn't need to know, neither do we. It's an election that's made with the IRS 75 days of the formation of the entity. And we do have a service to help with the 2553 form preparation if needed. So that's the Subchapter S tax status, which can also be obtained for the LLC. So some of the advantages and disadvantages of the S status. So one of the advantages is it offers the pass-through taxation. It can go ahead and own shares of stock in another C corporation. It allows for the investors to write off early losses. We discussed those profits and losses passing through to the owners of the company, which then they can write off that personally. The S election, the S Corp, the S status avoids the double taxation. The disadvantages, though, there are some disadvantages to this tax status. It's not great for clients looking to raise investments by selling shares. And one of the reasons it's not great is there are restrictions. It's restricted to 100 shareholders, no more. So if looking to raise capital, there's not a lot of shareholders that can be brought on board. It's restricted to one class of stock. It cannot own shares in other S entities. Another big one that will go ahead and severely reduce the pool of potential investors is shareholders must be U.S. residents. So that being said, the S status, if looking to bring aboard investors, will drastically limit the investment pool. So we do see clients steer clear of the S status when looking to go ahead and raise capital. So we've gone ahead and covered the corporation, the S status, the sole proprietorship, the LLC. Now we'll get down to the fun part, which is actually the creation of the company, the forming of the company. People think this is going to be a task that's going to be very difficult, and when they're done, they're so surprised at how easy this was accomplished. It literally takes 5 to 10 minutes. We can do it over the phone, online, we can do it in person. The hardest question of the entire process is coming up with a company name. Once you come up with a company name, we can check it for you. It takes me a matter of seconds to check the availability of the name. We can tell you if we're off and running, or if we need to put you back to the drawing board and come up with a different name. You can email us, you can live chat with us. We've got a spot on our website where you can check the name. Whatever's easier for you, we're glad to oblige. So in order to form the company, we do require a communications contact. We need an individual's name, street address, phone number, kept current at all times. A P.O. box or postal mailbox is not acceptable. This communications contact could be a client's attorney, an accountant, an individual from the company responsible for overseeing the entity or the client themselves. A P.O. box is A-OK acceptable for our mailing address, but we are required to have this communications contact on file at all times. Now, this information is only for our files. It is not provided to Delaware, and it is not part of public record. And this address, too, can be anywhere in the world. So our non-U.S. clients, it's not a problem if the address is in India, no problem at all whatsoever, as long as it's not part of banned countries, Cuba, Iran, Sudan, North Korea, or Syria, no problem at all whatsoever, we can help. We're going to need an email address for correspondence, a phone number for our records. If we're forming a corporation, we will ask for number of authorized shares of stock. That's the total amount of shares that the company has to issue, and the par value. We're also going to go ahead and ask the initial individuals whom we're releasing the company to. So if this is a corporation, we're going to ask for the names of the initial director or directors, or an LLC, we're going to ask for the names of the initial members. We'll go ahead and ask for an annual billing address. We'll take the payment, And once we have the payment, the name is cleared and we're A-OK, we'll go ahead and get to work. We'll form the company for you right away. So that's it. The process to create a company is literally that easy. The most important question, Brett, what's it cost? Well, okay. The cost to form the company is relatively very, very low. We recently just lowered our fees $100. So on all of our formation packages, back on September 1st, they were $100 higher than what's shown right here on the slide. So our green formation package is going to include all the Delaware filing fees to form a corporation or an LLC, 1 full year of the registered agent service we discussed, preparation of the formation documents. It also includes us appointing the initial member or director. For a corporation, it's going to provide an initial set of bylaws. The company's formed the same day we have the order. If the name's available and we have the order before 4:30 Eastern Time, it's formed the same day, so that will be the birthday of the company. It takes us traditionally about 3 business days to have the document stamped and back approved from the Division of Corporations, and we'll go ahead and email you right away. We're also going to go ahead and include a digital seal. Think of this digital seal as the official signature for the entity. And all of our packages include lifetime customer support. So all that's only $179 in our green formation package. We have our basic package, which includes everything in the green service, along with hard copies of the documents by priority mail. Some ever so important templates. So for the LLC, it's the LLC operating agreement. We're going to give stock certificates for the corporation, membership or digital stock certificates for the corporation, digital membership certificates, various resolution forms. So resolution forms are forms that allow you to take action with the company. So for instance, we're going to give you a banking resolution form that'll go ahead and give an individual permission to open a bank account at said bank. So that's all that's included within the basic service at only $229. And next is my favorite, the standard package. The standard package is fantastic because it's going to include a complete company kit with a nice 3-ring binder. It's got a sleeve that goes around it. It's got the company name right on the spine. So it's a great organizational tool. So anything and everything that has to do with the business, the corporate documents, the stock certificates, or for an LLC, the operating agreement, or anything you want to know exactly where it is, this corporate kit is crucial because it's a great organizational tool. It can fit right on the shelf. You'll know where it is. Also in this standard service, we're actually going to give you physical stock certificates or membership certificates for an LLC. Membership certificate is like a stock certificate, but for an LLC. It's something just tangible you can give to an investor. We're going to give you a transfer ledger. It's going to give you the handheld company seal, which is the official signature for the company. It's going to raise the paper. Think of this as the official signature for the company. So in all packages, you get a digital seal, but in this package, you also get a handheld seal as well. It's all sent by FedEx anywhere in the United States. We can assist in obtaining the federal tax ID number. It's $65 if you have a U.S. address and social security number or ITIN number. If not, no problem. We can still help obtain that EIN number. It is $95 for our clients that do not have a U.S. address or U.S. social security number or ITIN number. So that covers my aspect. I'll go ahead and I'll send this back to Michael.
Thank you, Brett. That was great. And before we jump into the Q&A section, I just want to encourage everyone that's on here, if you're interested in learning more about business formations and specifically Delaware companies, check out our website and subscribe to our blog. You can see right on your screen the way to get to the subscription link. We send out weekly educational content and news from our blog. We don't send any spam. We rarely send more than 1 email per week, and we definitely will never share or sell your information. So if you're interested in just getting this weekly update from us, please go ahead and subscribe to that. We also have on our website the Delaware Incorporation Learning Center. You can learn about the business entities that we discussed today, as well as some additional ones, such as limited partnerships, series LLCs, nonprofits and public benefit corporations, as well as closed corporations. And we have a coming soon list over here. These are business entity types that are kind of just rolling out from the state of Delaware, including the divisive LLC merger, which allows somebody to take an LLC and split it into two separate companies, as well as registered series and public benefit LLCs. We're going to be having information on those in this section of our website soon, as well as on our blog. So if you visit our website or subscribe to our blog, you'll get that information as soon as it's available. So thank you for joining us today. We're going to do some questions now, and I see we have a couple coming in, so that's great. If anyone else has questions, please feel free to start sending them in, and we're going to get to as many as we can. And Brett, I just kind of want to start this by going back to, we said in the beginning that we are Delaware formation specialists. So I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on what makes Delaware such an attractive place for someone to form a company.
That's a great question. Delaware, the way I like to explain it is, Delaware has the best laws to help protect, the best corporate laws to help protect the individuals behind the company. It makes it the toughest to what we call pierce the corporate veil to go after the individuals behind the company. One person alone can act as a whole entire Delaware company. You don't need to bring in outside individuals to fill your board of directors, to go ahead and act as officers, so you don't have to have people there that you don't want in your company in the first place. You don't have to live in Delaware. You don't have to visit the state of Delaware. You just need to have a registered agent in Delaware. You don't need to have a physical address in Delaware either. The cost to form the company are extremely low, as we went over. Delaware is unique. It has a chancery court, which is strictly for businesses and corporations to help expedite disputes. So this chancery court, it is unique to Delaware, and it's run by judges, not juries. So if there's a dispute in between members or dispute in between internal workings of a corporation, it's going to come to Delaware, and it's going to be handled fairly, and it's going to be handled by judges that are familiar with business law, and so you're not just mixed in with the courtroom with other people, that judges and things that aren't familiar with business. So the Delaware structure is also great. Many of your venture capitals and angel investors, I can't tell you how many times I've had a client that has filed a company in California, for instance, that has had to go ahead and refile here in Delaware in order to go ahead and bring these angel investors, these outside investors, on board. The corporate responsibilities between the officers, the shareholders, the directors are clearly defined. So the outside investors will want to use a Delaware company since they're familiar with the state of Delaware. So that being said, it's more or less, in a nutshell, the strength of the corporate laws. Delaware has been known for years upon years as having the best corporate laws. Over 60% of your Fortune 500s, your New York Stock Exchange, some of your biggest companies out there are Delaware companies. Google, Amazon, Twitter, Facebook, Disney, you name it. Most of your banks, most of your tech companies, they're all Delaware companies. They're not actually here in Delaware. They can operate these companies anywhere in the world that they want, but they're formed here in Delaware and governed by the state of Delaware corporate laws.
Great. Thanks for that. And one of the benefits to forming Delaware is the privacy that it offers people who start a business here. And we actually have a question from the audience asking about she's asking strategies to make the business entity anonymous. But what can you tell us about the privacy that Delaware offers and what it means for different business types?
Sure. In this day and age, people are always worried about what's part of the public record. We'll start off with the LLC. When we file the certificate of formation to create the LLC, the information of the members or managers is not provided to the state. It's not listed on the formation document. We create a document called Statement of the Authorized Person that releases the LLC to the initial members until any successors are elected internally within that LLC's operating agreement. And that operating agreement is that internal document that we discussed that's not provided to the state and not part of the public record that's going to spell out the economic relationship among the members. So there's the annual franchise tax that's paid to the state of Delaware. This annual franchise tax is just the flat $300. Delaware really is just going to have their hand out looking for the payment. No other information is going to be needed to be provided to them. No information of the members' names, addresses, or the manager's information. Now, with the corporations, we're filing the certificate of incorporation to create the entity. And on that document, no information of the shareholders' names or addresses, no information of the officers or the directors is provided to the state. It's just not listed on that document. We create a document entitled Statement of the Incorporator. And this Statement of the Incorporator will go ahead and release the corporation to the initial directors until any changes are made internally within the company. So directors can be changed, officers can be appointed, shares can be issued, shareholders can be changed. However, we mentioned the annual franchise tax and annual report that's paid to Delaware by March 1st of every year. That annual report is going to require information. So along with the payment, Delaware will require the list names and addresses of the company's directors and information of one of the company's officers. So that's going to be the information as far as what's public record with the state of Delaware.
We've got some great questions coming in from our audience. The next one I want to get to is, this is a common question that we get. Do you have to have a Social Security number to get an EIN to start a business?
That's a great question. The SSN is not a requirement to go ahead and obtain the tax ID number. When we obtain this tax ID number from the IRS, if a client does not have a U.S. Social Security number or a U.S. address, there's a special process that we must go through to obtain this EIN number. It does take us on average 7 to 20 business days. We've got a team here that all they do all day, every single day, is help process these EIN applications. They've got this process down to a science. So they will ensure that we're able to go ahead and obtain the EIN number, even if you do not have a U.S. address or Social Security number. So the cost for us to obtain that EIN, if you do not have an SSN, is only $95.
Okay, well, I think that answers that question. If there's any more information you need, please feel free to chat it in or contact us through our website. Another question that we get all the time coming from our audience is, as a non-U.S. citizen, once I form my LLC, in order to open a business bank account in the U.S. I'm assuming the person meant bank account. It wasn't included in there, but it sounds like that's what they mean. So, Brett, I know you get asked this all the time. What advice do you have for somebody who wants to open a U.S. bank account?
Sure. You know, what good is a corporation if you don't have a bank account? The process, as we discussed, to go ahead and open the corporation is relatively easy. It's quick, it's painless, it's inexpensive. The tax ID number process, we'll take the complications out of that. We'll make sure that's done. The banks. Traditionally, the banks are going to need to meet with someone from the company in person, along with the formation documents we provide and the tax ID number. And when they meet you in person, they will also need the ID, of course. However, the banks, there is not a set standard. Banks are constantly changing the rules and requirements required to go ahead and open the bank account. What we always suggest is it's a good idea to first go ahead and reach out to a bank of your choosing and inquire with that bank, find out exactly what their current requirements are in order to go ahead and work with them to go ahead and open the bank account. I say it's a good idea to make sure that you get this list in writing, so therefore you have all your ducks in a row, and you'll need to work with the bank directly and just jump through any of the hoops that they have, but they will need to meet with someone in person with the formation documents, ID, and tax ID number. After that, it's too hard to say. The banks are notorious for changing the requirements, and it can change daily. I had clients that were flying over from Germany. They had everything ready to go, I's dotted, T's crossed, document notarized, this, that. They touched base with the bank the day before they flew over, and that night the bank changed their policy and they weren't able to go ahead and open the account. So working with the banks can be a little frustrating. Just make sure that you do reach out to these banks to find out their current rules and procedures.
Great. So we've gotten a few comments from one of our participants who has formed a company already in the U.S., I believe through Harvard Business Services, and he's interested in establishing several subsidiaries of his company, and wants to know if he can create DBAs to use as a trademark. And I think maybe this also feeds into what we briefly mentioned just before we got to the Q&A, that Series LLC is another option for this. But that's not my area of expertise. That's yours, Brett, so I'm going to let you answer that question.
Often what we see when operating multiple types of business is we do see clients tend to form separate entities or separate ventures for each and every aspect of the business. And one of the reasons they do tend to go this route is that way all the eggs aren't in one basket. So if something happens to one aspect of the business, it's not going to affect the other aspect of the business. Now, the DBA is something, it's called doing business as under a different name. So there's one company, and it just simply has DBAs underneath it, doing business as. However, it still just is one company. So there can be multiple different DBAs. However, they're not separate companies. So the DBA is traditionally done where a client is actually physically operating. So for instance, if a client was actually physically here in Delaware, it would be done with the state of Delaware. Then it would be done at the county level where actually physically operating. So every state within the U.S. is going to have their own type of requirements as far as what is needed to go ahead and obtain a DBA. So it's not something that's traditionally done here within the state of Delaware unless it's actually physically operating here in Delaware. Then that DBA is going to be done in the county in which it's operating. Now, often when we're seeing clients seeing clients have multiple ventures, it's not uncommon for us to see them form a company that's the top of the pyramid, that's the holding company that owns multiple entities underneath it. So that's something that we see as well, is we have one company that's a holding company that then forms into separate LLCs or corporations as far as their subsidiaries go. So hopefully that answers the question. If not, feel free to reach out to me. You can call me. I've got Skype at DelawareInc.com. You can email me at Brett@DelawareInc.com, and I'd be glad to go over any questions.
All right, and moving on to the next question. If there's an individual who wants to form a company as just a single person, are there any limitations on what that person can do or what type of company they can form?
You know, think about it this way. We have to start small. So one person alone can operate, can form the company, can operate the company by themselves for a while. They can be the board of directors. They can be the only shareholder. They can be the president, the secretary, the treasurer. Great part about it is there's no one to argue with. As the business takes off and things get going, you know, outside individuals can come in, can purchase shares, can go ahead and take on roles as officers, can take on roles as a board of director to go ahead and let the company grow. So it's not uncommon at all whatsoever for us to see an entity start off as one person and one person alone.
Perfect. So one other question that we've gotten is, what is needed in order for somebody with a Delaware company to do business in a different state in the United States, say Florida, for example? What do they need to do in order to start?
Okay, that's a great question. The company's formed in Delaware for the strength of the corporate laws. So the company's considered domestic. since it was formed here in Delaware. So it's domestic to Delaware. However, if it's physically operating in a jurisdiction outside of Delaware, in a state in the U.S., clients are exploring the process to what we call foreign qualify. So it's domestic to Delaware, and it's foreign to the state we're physically operating. So traditionally, if a client is hiring employees in a state, opening a storefront in a state, they're going ahead, or physically operating in a state, they're going ahead and they're exploring the process to more or less qualify it as the foreign corporation there. Think of it this way. It's just a way for instance, Florida Division of Corporations to know that, hey, this Delaware entity is actually physically operating within this jurisdiction. So there's a filing that we make. A lot of times for most states, it just takes a couple days. It's filed with the Division of Corporations or Secretary of State's office, whatever they call it, within the state that you're located. And it will then allow the Delaware Corporation or the Delaware LLC to go ahead and operate within that jurisdiction as a foreign entity.
All right. And we have just one more question right now. If anyone else in the audience has a question, we might have a minute to squeeze it in. So go ahead and send that if you have a question. But otherwise, I'm just going to end with, when you use a registered agent, can you use that registered agent's street address as your own business address, or do you have to include your own business, your own physical address for other business purposes?
The registered agent's address is going to be a liaison in between the Division of Corporations and your company. However, it's not going to be considered your company's mailing address or your company's physical office address. Now, we do offer a mail/virtual office solution where it's your company name at our address. What this gives to you is the mail comes into our office. We scan it by the company name. We'll go ahead and email it to you, or if it's physical mail that needs to be sent, we'll send that to you. But it allows you to have a mailing address here within the state of Delaware. It also is going to go ahead and give you a 302 phone number, which is the area code here in the state of Delaware. A call can come in, and we will go ahead and forward that to your number here within the U.S. So now you've formed a company in the state of Delaware. You have a mailing address within the state of Delaware, a 302 phone number, so it gives you that virtual office package. So to answer your question, we can act as the agent. We will not be considered the physical office location. We do have services and solutions for a mail forwarding solution. So if you're a client that travels around a lot, or don't want mail coming to a condo or your home, it's not atypical for our startups to go ahead and not have an office yet. We've got to start somewhere. So often the physical office location, the principal place of business for a new startup is a client's home. So they will traditionally sign up for this virtual office service that gives you an address here in Delaware, allows us to scan the mail and send it to you, provide you with a 302 phone number that's forwarded to your phone number, so therefore you can answer these calls directly. That service is only $299 a year if you need it.
Awesome. And just one quick follow-up to that question is, what about an online business? If somebody is out of state, not in Delaware, forming a Delaware company that is an online business, do they still go through the same process for foreign qualification?
That's a great question. Online businesses, we hear this quite often. It's an online business. However, this online business will still have a physical office location somewhere. So what we tell clients is, traditionally, if physically operating in a state, hiring employees in a state, they'll go ahead, opening a storefront in a state, they'll go ahead and at least start the process to explore the foreign qualification. Usually our clients that aren't actually physically here in the state of Delaware are often qualified somewhere. So we're not able to say, yes, you must qualify. No, you don't have to qualify. It will depend on your unique situation. But we can say that often we do see clients traditionally qualify their business where we're physically operating.
All right, great. So that wraps up our questions and it wraps up our webinar today. So thank you all for joining us. As I mentioned, we are going to be sending out the recording. I think you'll get an email right from the GoToWebinar platform that will include a link to that recording that should come on Friday. Again, if anyone is interested in receiving information from us that's not already subscribed to our weekly blog posts, please feel free to go to our website, find the subscribe link under our blog, and join us there. And once again, you can contact us however you'd like, by phone, by chat, by email, right through our website. We're more than happy to assist with any questions you might have. And I just want to thank you all for taking some time out of your day today, and we hope to hear from you again in the future.